In this video, we will cover an overview and navigation of Progress V4. The objectives of this session are to introduce you to the structure of Progress V4, as well as an introduction to the structure of the GBV and child protection modules in V4. And then we will continue on to do a basic introduction to navigation in V4. Progress version 4 is organized into 4 main structures. The largest of these structures is called a module. What this means is that basically each of our work sectors has its own module. So Progress V4 is divided into a registration module, a child protection module, an SGBV module. All of the different work sectors have their own module in V4. Below the module structure is the smaller structure called an entity. The entity, it holds various types of information we collect for our work. So within a module, you will have various entities that divides up the information within that sector into its own containers. You'll have a specific section where you would find the child protection cases. The entity is like that section where you would have all of the child protection cases information stored together. Below the entity, you will find the structure called records. So records is the individual level information for each of those entities. So within the entity of child protection cases, I will have individual cases. The records are the forms for those individual cases. In addition, under the entity BIA, I would have, within the records, I would have each of the individual BIA records for our child protection cases. So the records structure is what you can think of as the forms within an overall case file. And going down to the smallest structure within V4 are the fields. The field is the data points. So when we think about all of those pieces of information that we collect while filling out a form, that is what the field is. So this would include examples such as name, age, opening date. These structures are important so that you better understand how V4 is organized, as when we navigate, it is moving between these different levels, from field to record to entity to module and then back down again. And it's also quite important as these will be the terminology used throughout the remainder of the video series, how to use child protection and GBV modules in Progress V4. Progress V4 is organized around the individual. This is slightly different than Progress version 3, which really focused on registration groups. In Progress V4, what you will see is that there is a record created for each individual. Now that individual can then be lumped and is lumped into a registration group, and those registration groups can have group cases associated with them. But in addition to that, each individual within that group also has the ability to have individual files associated with them. So in this example, you will see that there are 4 individuals that are registered within V4. They make up the individuals that are included in this group, 837-1800365. But in addition to that registration group, you'll have 4 different individuals who can have a different makeup of the number of or types of cases associated with them. So the first individual has a refugee status determination case, as well as an SGBV case. The second individual has a protection case. They have a specific needs code associated with them, as well as a child protection case. The third individual has a specific needs code associated with them, and you'll notice the fourth individual does not have any additional cases associated with them. So by organizing V4 around the individual, it allows us both to gather information about the individual themselves, as well as that information that is associated with them as part of their registration group. Next, we will speak about the specific organization of the SGBV module. So as was just described, the individual is the foundation of the organization in Progress version 4. So if you were to look at this slide, these are the different entities that you could find within that individual file or the registered individual. Now, associated with that, you can see to the left, there is the registration group. So this person is just one of these 4 individuals associated with that registration group. But to the right of this, you will see that this individual can have additional cases or additional records added on to their file for the specific needs of that individual. And these can be child protection, they can be SGBV, they could be legal and physical protection, it could be an RSD case, or it can be SSD case. This is to allow for case management processes to be documented as in V4, in addition to registration processes, which have always been able to be documented. If we are to zoom in on the SGBV circle, we then see that here is our SGBV case. Within that case, we have the ability to collect records for SGBV assessment, SGBV intervention, safety plan, and then SGBV incidents, which for GBV is the foundation of our GBV data collection. Within the GBV incident, you will find an alleged perpetrator, as well as the incident location. Everything that is within this circle has all of the security measures that we have developed for the SGBV module in place, meaning this high level of security that we have developed for the SGBV module will protect all of the elements or all of the records within this circle. Anything outside of this circle will have the same levels of protection that are available to other modules, and access to those data points, fields, records will be in line with the security of those other modules. You will notice that there are 2 yellow circles attached to the SGBV case. These are entities that are able to go across all the different modules of Progress V4. Thus, they do not sit within the SGBV module. They are the connectors and available and visible across all the different modules. The structure of the child protection module is similar to that of the SGBV module. On the left, you will see that it's the same connection to the individual, that it also sits alongside the individual so that each individual can have a child protection case if they meet their criteria, as well as if they meet the needs. The child protection case includes different entities to those of the SGBV case. Within a child protection case, you will find a BIA, both simple and comprehensive, a BID and BID interviews, family tracing request entity, interventions, and child protection incidents. It's very similar to that format of the SGBV incident, which includes both an alleged perpetrator and the incident location. In addition to these entities, you will additionally be able to link child protection cases so that if there is a connection between one child protection case and another, that you would be able to include that linked child protection case into another case so that you can refer to them together. You will also be able to find within a child protection case information for care arrangements and counseling and do modifications to those, but they actually are housed within the individual record and the individual entity within registration, but are able to be modified and added within a child protection case. Similarly to the GBV module, any entity that falls within the CP case circle has a higher level of security that has been designed specifically for child protection and SGBV data. Anything that falls outside of that, including the 2 yellow circles that indicate the entities that move between the various modules based upon the privileges granted for those individual modules. So now that we've covered the basic structure of Progress V4 and specifically the child protection and the SGBV modules, we will now move to basics around navigation. When you first log into Progress V4, you will see a page that looks something like this. You will notice that at the top there is a band that can be either blue or green. This is called the navigation bar. Below the navigation bar, we will find the ribbon, where we can find various activities that we might need to do or actions that we might need to take. Below the ribbon, you will usually find a title, which will say something like Active Registration Group, Active Child Protection Cases. This is the view, and it defines what you will be seeing below. And below that, you will see columns and rows of data that are the individual records that fall into something called the grid. So this whole area below the view, which describes what we are seeing, is the grid, which includes all of that data. To begin with, we'll discuss the navigation bar. On the navigation bar, when you first log into V4, you will usually by default be taken to the registration group entity of registration. What you will notice about the navigation bar is on the left, it will always say progress. And then next to it, it will always indicate the module that you are in. And next to that, it will indicate the entity that you are in. So by looking at this navigation bar, I can tell that I'm currently within the registration module, within the registration group entity. So if you ever get lost, you can look up at the navigation bar and it will indicate to you where you are, and you can confirm whether you are where you would like to be. If you were to click on the arrow next to the module, this will open up the navigation bar further to show you all of the various modules. Each of the large boxes here is a different module in V4. These will only be visible based upon your security privileges. So if I have the privilege to see the SGBV module, then this box will appear. If I do not, then this box will not appear. I'm going to navigate now to the child protection module. So I will move over and I will click. And once I do that, you will then see below in orange are the various entities that fall within the child protection module. In addition to those which fall within the child protection module, there are also related entities that are relevant, such as individual registration group and other entities that we will get into in the near future. The same is true for SGBV. If I click on SGBV module, I now can see the various SGBV entities. So the SGBV cases, SGBV assessments, and incidents. I'm going to move myself to the child protection cases. So now at the top of the navigation bar, you can see we are now in the child protection module. You will notice here is my ribbon. Below that is the view. So I am now looking at all active child protection cases, and the grid below will show me each of those records. Other features on the navigation bar are this magnifying glass, which will allow you to do a multi-entity search. This will allow you to look across all of the modules in V4. I would click on this and a search box will come up and you would type that information into this entity. Next to the multi-entity search, you will see a history button, and it's a circle with a clock and an arrow. This is very similar to your browser history when you use the internet. All of the cases that you have recently been looking at any of the records will show up here. If you have a record or something that you are using very, very frequently, and you want to ensure that it always remains at the forefront, when you hover over one of these records, you will notice a pin shows up. If I was to click on that, that will pin that record to the top. So as you work, if there are specific views or records that you need, you can pin them. And then perhaps when you no longer need them, you can click on it again and remove the pin. Next to the history is the new, which will allow you to add various activities, such as a task, a phone call, an email, or an appointment. So any action that you might need to take. Finally, you will see a funnel. This is called Advanced Find. Advanced Find will allow us to do an even more advanced search than one can do with the multi-entity search. It allows us to use multiple criteria to winnow down all of the data in V4 to those specific files that we would be looking for. For example, if I was to look for only child protection cases for females under the age of 12, you would use something like the Advanced Find to find those types of records. We will discuss the Advanced Find further during the video, how to use V4 for GBV and child protection case management. The last three icons on the navigation board will indicate first settings. This is how you can change your default settings. So as I mentioned, when you first come into V4, the system will always take you to registration groups up here. You have the ability to change that so that it would take you automatically to, let's say, child protection and child protection cases, so that it takes you automatically to where you're spending most of your time in the system. In addition to that, you are able to change your time zone, you are able to change your currency. So this settings is where you can adapt the system to your own personal needs. The question mark here will take you directly to Prime Support. So for any questions you might have while navigating through the system, the Prime Support page is very useful to give you information in real time. These videos that you will be watching will be available through this link as well. And finally, you'll see a circle with an individual icon. This, when you hover over it, will tell you who you were logged in as. This is quite important, as different individuals have different security privileges, and what you are able to access and to see within the system will be defined by your user profile. When you hover over that circle with the individual in the corner, this will tell you the title or the name of your user profile. Thus, you can understand if you have the appropriate profile. And in some cases, if multiple people are using the same computer, it can ensure that you are logged in as the correct person. The next navigation tool we are going to discuss is the ribbon. The ribbon is dynamic, meaning depending upon where you are in the system, it will look different. It will also look different depending upon your security privileges. Some people, such as caseworkers, are able to create new child protection cases. Some people are not. If you are able to, then it will show up in the ribbon. If you are not, then it will not show up. So if I click on child protection case, you will notice that my ribbon has shifted and changed, and now the different actions that I would like to take within this record will now be available. So I have the ability to add a BIA. I have the ability to create, refer, initiate transfer. You will note that sometimes not all options are visible, and if you click on the three dots on the far right, this will allow you to see additional options. Below the ribbon, you will see there is, as we mentioned before, the view, the title of what information you are currently looking at. Views are extremely important and can be modified to allow you to look at filtered information as is relevant to your work. We will discuss this further in the video called How to Use V4 for Case Management. You will also see there's another search option here. This allows you to search within the grid below, so within the information that is here. The magnifying glass in the navigation bar allows you to search across all modules and entities, whereas if I search here, I am looking only within the child protection cases, and beyond that, I'm looking only within what view I'm looking at, so active child protection cases. When you're looking for specific information about an individual or a specific record, you will look down to the grid to find that, and when you want to open it, you will either click on the case number to then take you to the specific record. Once you have opened the record, you will now notice that at the very top, it will tell you the entity which you are in and then the name of the form. So the information, the record laid out below. So as we are in a child protection case, this is the unique identifier for this child protection case. Each of the forms is divided into sections. These will be identified by the titles with arrows next to them. These can be collapsed or expanded based upon your need. Each form is designed to have some sections collapsed by default or some sections expanded by default, but you can modify this just by clicking on the arrow. If you want to see which sections are in a form, you can click on the 3 lines next to the unique identifier, and that will provide a list for you of the different sections, which will allow you to skip directly to that or also to see what information is included in the form. If I want to skip directly to that, for example, for my BIAs or BIDs, I will just click on that and it will take me directly down to that information. You do not have to move directly. You can also just scroll down the page or scroll up the page to see all included information in that form. The last thing to note is that you will notice that some of the fields have red asterisks next to them. These indicate that these are mandatory fields for the specific entity that you are in. So for this record, it is required that there is a case number assigned, that a priority is assigned, there is a child protection case status assigned, etc. Before I'm able to save a case, if I'm creating one, or to save any updates, it will be required that all fields that have an asterisk are completed. This has been a brief overview of navigation in Progress V4. Thank you for your time.